Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on in. We are back after a long stretch, a little bit of an absence. I'm sorry I missed you last week. Got a lot of stuff going on my front. Trying to really get the show in process here while working and while being a dad. You know, got a lot of stuff going on. Trying to work this in, but we are back and we have got a jam-packed show for you here today. This is a YouTube exclusive. My YouTube viewers, you are my favorite viewers, my most humble viewers. I love you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, I am your host, NathanPaswell. Follow the links below that you see popping up. Bing, 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 bing. Follow me on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff, because today we have got a lot to cover, and I am going to be posting a lot of stuff on TikTok, trying to get you guys going for week 2 and beyond. We're getting a little bit more structure in here, a little bit more of how I want to plant the shows every single day in the schedule, so next few weeks should be a good one, but we got a big show for you, so I'm going to stop rambling, get right into it, because we have got lineup of the week, waivers, as well as the What We Learned section of week 2. And first of all, not much is learned when you got this man on your graphic. Stefon Diggs absolutely getting it done, rocketing up to the wide receiver 1 on the year. So very, very excited for Stefon Diggs, managers, players who drafted him after Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson, things like that. You are very stoked. Hopefully you got a good running back to go with it. You are very, very set up for what's coming forward. If you have Stefon Diggs and like DeAndre Swift, you are in a really good position for what's coming towards the middle of the year and whatnot. So very excited for that. We have got a lot of stuff to cover, so if you are on YouTube, you're here looking for waivers, you can check the little segment clips that I have below. Skip to waivers, skip to whatever section that that you're talking about or that you're interested in, and then hopefully come back and watch the whole thing. Help your boy out, share with your friends, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Let us first get into the lineup of the week, which not a great week. Now, if you're new to lineup of the week, you're new to Fantasy Daily, what we like to do on lineup of the week is really get those, kind of edge players that people are on the edge about, or maybe they're waiver pickups that are, left over from waivers, and it's, Friday morning, and you're wondering what you can play because you have an injury or something like that. So I try to grab outside players. It has not been doing me great on my lineup of the week, but that's all right. We're going to keep it rolling. We're going to come back this week. Now, I don't like to put players like Amon-Ra St. Brown in here. A lot of the times when I watch other fantasy shows, there are different outlets that I like to watch. They'll put players like Amon-Ra was one of the big ones this week that everybody was saying, yes, play Amon-Ra. You obviously play Amon-Ra. That's a low reach to me. I'm trying to grab players that are widely unconsidered or widely unrostered, something like that. Players that I can grab for, basically no value, put them into my lineup and feel good about it. So that's what lineup of the week is. First up, we got quarterback Davis Mills. He broke my heart. He gives me the L. We got Mecole Hardman for Thursday. He gave me the L. Darnell Mooney basically disappeared again. We will be talking about him soon. Darnell Mooney gets an L for me. Allen Robinson got the W for me. Michael Carter, Travis Etienne, both serving me L's. Logan Thomas catching the touchdown, giving me the W. Tyler Bass, busy Monday night. He gets me a W, and Cincinnati's defense blew it. They look awful against Dallas. Dallas getting the win against Cincinnati. That gave me an L. So that is my lineup of the week. I am currently at 7-11, but we will be back. This week is a good week. I've done a lot of studying, a lot of, data crunching, really pressing these numbers. This will be a good week, and this one, I might take some cheap wins on this one. I might go up a little bit in the rankings just to kind of give myself a few wins off of this 7-11. But it's going to be a good week. I promise coming forward. I'm very excited for my lineup of the week coming this week that I'm already building. But let us get into the week 2 takeaways and what we learned. Now, first and foremost, I'm going to talk about Indianapolis and Tennessee because both sides of the ball, they are absolutely garbage. So for Indianapolis, outside of Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman, you are probably looking at an utter wasteland for the entire season. We had some, kind of hope at the beginning of the season that maybe Alec Pierce, Paris Campbell, any one of those guys would really pop up. Ashton Doolin was the one who led the team this week. Jonathan Taylor gets overshined by Nyheim Hines. That hurts. So this team is absolutely in shambles right now. And outside of Jonathan Taylor, who you're continuing to start every week, you're not trading Jonathan Taylor unless you can get something like Cooper Kupp plus. You're not trading Jonathan Taylor. On the Tennessee side, Tennessee really needs to lean heavy on Henry, and we're going to talk about Derrick Henry soon in the Tennessee offense. But I'm really out on most stuff in Tennessee right now. Their defense is absolutely atrocious. Tannehill can't get out of their own way. And as much as Tennessee fans and myself would like to see Malik Willis, it will be worse for the offense if Malik Willis is, as far as the pass catching options go. So Treylon Burks, Robert Woods, unfortunately, it looks like they will be deep reach streamers or, kind of just flyer plays on bye weeks and stuff like that. But besides that, you're really not looking at them until further notice. But right now, it really, really does look bleak for Tennessee. Washington offense, they will remain productive. So what we learned this week from Washington is that this will keep up. Carson Wentz is absolutely balling. He is in the QB1 conversation every single week until further notice. He has a pretty good schedule. So Wentz is still in that conversation. That Washington offense is just too good at the 3 wide receivers that they have. They might be the best wide receiver room in the league. And I know you can say, okay, what about Miami? But that's only Tua and Tyreek Hill. So they have the best wide receiver duo in the league. But I think Washington has the best receiving core in the league, tight end included, the 3 wide receivers they have over there. Carson Wentz has a lot of security blankets, so it's going to be fun watching him next week. He plays against Philadelphia, getting that game back after he's already played against Doug Peterson week 1, getting the dub. Moving on to the next thing that we learned, Tua is for real. And let us stop to talk about Tua for a second, because it is amazing how much the internet will not just give Tua credit for what he is doing. What I'm seeing on the internet is you got a lot of help around you. You're lucky you got Waddle. You're lucky you got Hill. This was won by Tua. This wasn't won by a couple calls that went his way. They came back and beat Baltimore. Tua beat Baltimore. How many rushing touchdowns on the day? None. 6 passing touchdowns from Tua. Tua beat Baltimore. Not the kicking team, not special teams. Tua beat Baltimore when Miami let Baltimore do whatever they want on defense. Tua came back, beat Baltimore's defense. Tua is for real. Keep looking at him, keep moving on him. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are wide receiver ones throughout the duration of the season. Moving on to Darnell Mooney, who we talked about a second ago. Darnell Mooney, I do believe, can be dropped. And as much as it hurts, as much as we looked at it during the offseason, he is going to be one of those players that you are going to be chasing the points for. And until Justin Fields can really show what he can do on this offense, you're looking at Cole Kmet. 2 awful, awful games. I think he had a 0 both games. So Cole Kmet, gone. Darnell Mooney, gone. I am moving on from them. A controversial one, moving on to Tony Pollard. I do believe that Tony Pollard will be just as useful, if not more useful than Zeke for the duration of the season. So if you have Pollard, you look at him basically in the same light as Zeke, but he might have more of an uptick on games where they're going to have really high passing volume, which is just going to be about every single game since they're going to have to do some work. Dallas is going to give them opportunities on defense where they are going to have some games where they're in positive game script when Dak comes back. So I do believe throughout the duration of the season, Pollard has immense upside and basically about the same, if not more than Zeke, because Zeke is looking very bad right now. Very, very bad. So next point that we learned this week, that is Tampa Bay could be struggling without Godwins and Evans. That offense looked really, really bad trying to get going from what we're used to seeing. So Fournette not getting much going. Nothing you could trust in the wide receivers. Evans will be suspended for 1 week, I believe. I mean, he's going to appeal it, but I don't know how you appeal what we saw on TV, Saying that guy yelled at Tom Brady is not a really good defense when it comes to appealing for the NFL. So I do believe that Evans will serve out that suspension. And if he doesn't, oh my God, Tom Brady is the most pampered quarterback ever. Moving on, Drake London and Garrett Wilson breakout games. Yes, I am in on the Drake London and Garrett Wilson breakout games because of the target totals, but also because of their involvement and how much they popped in this game. Both snap counts went up, so I do believe that this is them saying, okay, we need to get you into the offense. We need some life in this offense. Here it comes. Garrett Wilson, Drake London on 2 teams who are desperate for talent, desperate for somebody to step up. I think that they have the options now where you can look at them as wide receiver 2s. They're not going to have wide receiver 1 value every single week, but they do have the appeal where you do want to get them into your lineup. So I do think this is breakout games for both rookies there. Moving on to the next one, Chris Olave. He had the target, so if you can grab him, if he's unrostered, I would, but I am a little bit more skeptical on how often I want to start him. But it is one of those things where when you get 14 targets, it's really difficult for me to look away. So, Chris Olave, man, we liked him at the beginning of the season. We liked the routes he run. Michael Thomas is kind of catching those touchdowns back-to-back games. He'll be all right going forward. But Chris Olave, one that I think you need to look at. Alrighty, moving on now to the wide receiver takeaways for the week. Stephon Diggs, both Miami wide receivers, Waddle and Hill, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Cooper Kupp, all top 5, absolutely balling. out. So depending on your scoring, by the way, Cooper Kupp had 2 identical scores week 1 and 2, down to the .80 at 31.8 in PPR leagues. Both weeks, identical scores. Very odd. I don't think I've ever seen that before. But yes, 31.8 back-to-back weeks, back-to-back number top 5 weeks. So great. My biggest takeaway is my victory lap. Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver 1, and it don't stop. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown rolling through this, and I am absolutely excited for it because we talked about it a lot. This is my biggest victory lap from this offseason. You're not going to hear me stop talking about Amon-Ra St. Brown because I am in love with the upside of Amon-Ra St. Brown and the fact that he is going to keep it going. So Amon-Ra St. Brown for wide receiver 1, and it don't stop. Garrett Wilson, his breakout week, you got to get that guy more involved. We talked about him already. Another big game for Christian Kirk. We said last week that Christian Kirk will remain in the top 5, top 10 consideration, and he is going to be a wide receiver 1 throughout the duration of the season with Trevor Lawrence. You can keep rolling with that. He's finished at 7 this week. Mike Williams bounce back game. That was very satisfying. Keenan Allen should be back in the next game, but you keep rolling with Mike Williams. You keep him in your lineup. Unless you have something star-studded that you can fill in there, Mike Williams is definitely in there every single week. Amari Cooper coming through, but I am very nervous on what to do when I play him. Donovan Peoples-Jones, after 11 targets, gets absolutely nothing on this week. So Amari Cooper having a big appeal in this game might be exact same situation as Donovan Peoples-Jones, where he completely disappears from game to game. So I'm very worried about Amari Cooper, and if I was the Amari Cooper manager, I would definitely be looking to trade him this week for sure. Drake London, we talked about in his breakout week. We will be more involved. He has no chance not to be because he is probably one of the best wide receivers on that team. I mean, the best player on that team. With Kyle Pitts included, Drake London is very super talented, and they need to take some attention off of Cordero Patterson. Nelson Aguilar, he is peaking in at the 11. You can't trust it. Can't trust it. No, no, no. Tyler Lockett, he snuck into the 15. Can't trust that as well. No, no, no. Washington wide receivers, McLaurin, Dotson, Samuel. Every single one should be rostered. Every single one has every week appeal. 2 of them finished in the top 20 this week. The other one finished just outside, and I believe the 35 spot, and that would have been McLaurin, I think. Yes, I think McLaurin had 12 points, so he finished just outside. But Dotson, Samuel, they both need to be rostered, and they both need to be played just about every single week in your flex spot. Mike Evans, we already talked about. He got hit with the 1-game suspension that he is appealing, but we all saw what happened. It's very difficult for you to have any proof against that besides saying that guy yelled at my friend, and that's not a really good airtight alimony or defense, whatever the hell that is. DJ Moore, he snagged a touchdown this week. Trade him away. If you can grab DJ Moore and somebody else and package trade him away, I would absolutely do that. My man Sterling Shepard had the targets this week. He showed up for those, but not the score. But hey, this team is 2-0, all right? Undefeated New York Giants, all right? Second place in the NFC East, all right? Come on, man, Sterling Shepard. But no, keep an eye on Sterling Shepard. You don't necessarily have to grab him, but if you're hurting at wide receiver and there's really nothing left in a deep 12-man league, 14-team league, Sterling Shepard should be out there. You can go ahead and take a look at him because the targets weren't there. The snooze fest between the Broncos and Houston, but Sutton popping up for a great finish, and that was nice to see. Judy, unfortunately, goes down. He is day-to-day, so we will have to monitor that. We'll be talking about injuries soon. Greg Dortch does it again, and if he is still out there, he is in the waiver section. Spoiler alert for waiver section. Greg Dortch is out there, and he does it again. Rondell Moore will continue to miss time. James Conner might be missing time, so I do think that Greg Dortch is somebody that you could look at as a waiver option to go ahead and pick up and start definitely in a flex spot or a wide receiver 3 and hope that Kyler Murray keeps going to him, because Kyler Murray had a very good bounce back second half of that game to come back and beat Las Vegas. Hollywood also is going up against Jalen Ramsey next week. That's another reason why I like Greg Dortch in that Rams game for Kyler Murray. Down game from Justin Jefferson. That's okay. You keep rolling with him, obviously. All of the Vikings really just, I think I'm more surprised on Adam Thielen's involvement more than anything. But all the Vikings really had a down game in this one against Philadelphia. They just got torn up. But it's not like Tennessee where you're kind of throwing out the flag and saying, this team's screwed. You still play Jefferson, you still look at Thielen. But after next week, if Thielen doesn't get more involvement against Detroit next week, I'm going to be very, very concerned that he has 3 down weeks. So keep an eye on that. But if it might be time to pass on Adam Thielen, you have 7 targets and whatnot, it keeps coming. But if it's not passing on volume, then I'm even looking to trade him low, trade him away low. So it depends. Me personally, I'm very, very worried about Adam Thielen going forward. I have Adam Thielen in a couple leagues, and I'm looking at it like, hey man, if you don't come through this week, I might be trading you for next to nothing. Running backs, let's move on. We are talking about Nick Chubb because he is leading the pack with 3 touchdowns in his insane performance. Kareem Hunt taking a back seat. Similar situation in Green Bay. Arizona also battling back for his number 1 spot. He has the rushing touchdown, receiving touchdown. Very similar to the Hunt and Chubb situation. I think it's going to be when it comes to A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones is where you're going to play them every single week, but one might disappoint you. But then again, one might give you 3 touchdowns or 2 touchdowns. So you keep playing every single one, or you keep playing both of them every single week. You keep rolling them out and you pray away. Tony Pollard blasting up to the RB3 this week, but this is where I begin my spiel about how weird of a running back week it was. Now, I'm not the one usually to say, oh, it was a weird running back week or it was a weird football week. Every single week is a weird football week, and to me, that's a cop-out that you got your picks wrong. Own up to it. You got it wrong. I'm 7-11 in my lineup of the week. I'm not making any excuses. They were bad picks. It's on me. Stop it. Own up to your picks, damn it. Anyway, so it's not about being a weird running back week. These things happen. You got to be prepared for it. You got to try to look out for it. Obviously, this is unpredictable, but there are some things that you can kind of read the writing on the walls for. And running back is one of the more difficult ones too. But when it does drop, you don't go, oh, it's a weird running back week. That's what running back core is. It's weird, it's fluctuating, and it's difficult to prepare for. You really can't prepare for it, so it's hard to say that it is running back weird week. Anyway, moving on. Tony Pollard blasting up to the running back 3, but he had a 19.8 this week. 0 running backs finished within the 20-point margin. So what I mean by that is that Aaron Jones and Nick Chubb both had 32 points. I think Chubb had 32.3. Tony Pollard came in third with 19.8. So that means from 20 to 29.99, there was 0 running backs who scored within 20 points this week. So that severely obscures the running back numbers. Tony Pollard finished as running back 3 with 19.8. CMC also had a solid week. Dame Harris snuck into running back 6 with the down week. But with the down week, it being New England, I am not going to be looking at Dame Harris whatsoever as far as the appeal of that running back who's going to do that every single week for me. If I have a better option or a better wide receiver option that I can put into my flex over Dame Harris, I absolutely will be. I do not trust New England running backs, and it is basically game plan oriented, hot hand, whatever you want to call it in New England. It is it's a toss-up, and I'm not willing to play that on my team unless I can put him into my flex spot. But even that, I'm acknowledging other flex options that I have over Damian Harris. Although I do lean running back in my flex more often than not, there are plenty wide receivers I'd rather play over Damian Harris in my flex spot. DeAndre Swift, baby, low carries, but number 1 as a result. I cannot talk about how much I love DeAndre Swift, and if they unleash him as the running back 1 and they let him get the majority of the work, it's game over for running backs, and it's going to be a lot of DeAndre Swift. Very excited for DeAndre Swift and what he can do this year. Moving on. Clyde Edwards-Helaire stays marching along. Keep playing him. Keep pushing him out, and if you can go ahead and trade for him, I absolutely would. James Robinson with the commanding, I am the running back 1 here, not you, Travis Etienne. Keep him in your lineups. James Robinson should have some appeal, kind of like we had a couple years ago with him. Looking forward to that with James Robinson. David Montgomery with a top 10 finish before he heads to Houston. That just blew up Indy. I don't know if I'm going to trade David Montgomery. I'm so torn because I really want to say on the show that I'm moving Montgomery away. I'm trying to trade Montgomery away. But at the same time, when he heads into this matchup, I'm worried about if he has a good week. So I'm saying that I'm going to try to hang on to him to see what happens this week, but if you can get a good package for Montgomery this week, I think you do it just on the off chance, or, on the chance that he has a down week. You're not going to get what you wanted in return for Montgomery, and then it's going to feel bad when he has a good week and you already traded him away when you could have waited a week. So, depends on what you can get. I would shop him, but I'm not completely out on David Montgomery as far as waiting to see what happens next week. But then I will say on the other side that if he has a completely abysmal week next week, then I'm going to be sad. So you see kind of my, crusade here to want to get rid of him, but also my confliction with wanting to keep him at the same time. So it's difficult. I would shop him, see what you can get, but at the same time, if it's just not the right offer, then hang on to him, because I do think that he could have a good week next week. Derrick Henry had a disappointing week, but that makes him my running back trade target of the week. Derrick Henry's schedule opens up very, very friendly soon, and that team is going to need to lean on Henry a lot. I don't think that this is the last game that you see Malik Willis in. I think Tannehill is completely done. He just is awful. He looks awful. The team looks just absolutely garbage. They can't get anything done. I think they're going to lean very, very heavy on Henry, and as much as it's not going to be, crazy touchdown volume for Henry, I think if he gets back up into that 25-30 carry range, then he's going to be unstoppable as far as fantasy goes, and I do think we're heading in that direction. So his schedule opens up very nicely. If you can go out there and trade for Derrick Henry, I think that you should. Michael Carter and Breece Hall. These two will remain high value as long as Joe Flacco is the starter. So as long as Joe Flacco is the starter, I think that you can roll out Michael Carter and Breece Hall. They're continuing to get a lot of targets. On Tampa Bay, Leonard Fournette, definitely a disappointment. The offense really struggled against New Orleans. It will be interesting to see how they fare against against Green Bay next week without Evans. So you keep rolling out Fournette, obviously, but be very worried. They're playing against Green Bay next week, and without Evans in that, this offense could look really, really horrid. And I'm very, very concerned, because we've seen Tom Brady in New England without any passing options, and the offense really not clicking. We know what happens, and New England didn't really have many options. They didn't have any skill players. So outside of the skill players, you really have Russell Gage and Scotty Miller, and they just signed Cole Beasley. Not a good side. So if I had to pick up anybody, it'd be Russell Gage, because I'm a Russell Gage stan. But even that, the numbers don't prove that I should be looking at Russell Gage right now or anybody over there. Brashad Perryman scoring a touchdown, not looking that way at all. Running back update for James Conner. He was roughed up in the game in Las Vegas. They lost late. Darrell Williams, very, very surprisingly involved in that game. We'll talk about that in a second. But James Conner's injury is not too serious. He's considered basically day-to-day, or it could even downgrade week to week. So keep an eye on that. But Darrell Williams, between him and Eno Benjamin, we're going to talk about that on the waiver show. Moving on to quarterbacks, we're going to be talking about Carson Wentz, who we cannot stop talking about, because Carson Wentz is currently the QB4 on the year, and I think it's going to keep coming. This might be the best offense that Carson Wentz has ever played on as far as skill position goes, and probably I'm willing to bet that it is. All these players are really safety blankets for Carson Wentz to keep getting it done, and he's not being looked at enough even after last week where we said you could play him for this game. He is now the quarterback 4 after another explosive performance. You can keep him rolling. He's got all the bailouts, including Logan Thomas at tight end. Now let's move on. This is a spot I got to put my pencil down. Let's talk about Tua. I know we already talked about it, but this is difficult for me to not keep rolling on when we look at this right here. He plays Buffalo, okay? I get it, he plays Buffalo. That's going to suck. Then he plays Cincy. Then he plays the Jets. Then he plays Minnesota. Then he plays Pittsburgh. Then he plays Detroit. Then he plays Chicago. Then he plays Cleveland. Then he's got a bye. Then he plays Houston, San Francisco. Then he plays Chargers, Buffalo again. Then he plays Green Bay, New England, Jets. Tua might have the best schedule for quarterback. So as far as me at the top of the show talking about Tua not being one of the players that, gets enough respect after he keeps doing it, Tua might finish as the quarterback 1 this year. Looking at this schedule, and I know it's only 2 weeks in, but the teams that he has in front of him is like the most quarterback-friendly schedule that you can see after the few weeks that we've seen. Obviously, you got to play Buffalo twice. That sucks. But Tua is one of those players where I'm going to put him in my lineup, and if I need quarterback, I'm willing to take the chance on what happens against Buffalo. Because I don't think that Tua turns into Tannehill against Buffalo. I think Tua keeps it going. He's got Tyreek Hill. He's got Jalen Waddle. If he gets one of them the ball and they take off, he gets credit for that. Tua has one of the most amazing schedules. And even if I am somebody with a quarterback like, Matt Stafford or Derek Carr that I'm looking at that I'm hanging on to, I might drop one of them for Tua, and run with Tua for the rest of the season after this Buffalo week, or I might even take the chance now. If somebody drops him because he's playing against Buffalo, I'm going to get Tua. I'm very, very excited for Tua. Tua is somebody that I want on my team. I'm very excited for this, and I'm calling it now. He might finish as the quarterback 1 on the season. So very excited for Tua. Trey Lance, unfortunately, the next big thing will have to take a back seat because he has 2 ankle injuries, and Jimmy G will be the starter going forward. So Ayuk and Debo, they get a bit of a bump up. Jimmy G coming in to save the day, winning the game there for them against Seattle, I believe. Cooper Rush. Let's talk about Cooper Rush for a second because he is getting the win over Cincy. Cincy obviously pretty bad, a lot worse than we thought on defense. But Cooper Rush is not going to be useless. Now, I am not starting him, but like we talked about last week, he will keep your CD shares, nice. He will keep your Dalton Schultz. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But Dalton Schultz going to look a little nice. Those shares and whatnot, you'll be able to hang on to those. Dalton Schultz obviously went down early. PCL injury, we'll talk about that in a second. But your Pollards, your stuff like that, your pass catching options, when Gallup comes back, I do believe that Cooper Rush will be able to sustain them, so you keep rolling them out. CD had an okay this week. I think he had 15 points, so not a terrible week for him. Moving on to tight ends. Logan Thomas coming through with the touchdown this week, one of the players that we had on our lineup of the week to grab off the waiver wire, so there is one of our few W's this week. TJ Hawkinson having another down week. TJ Hawkinson will be dropped in league. So if you are one of the players who out there, or one of the managers out there who do not have a tight end, keep an eye out for if somebody drops TJ Hawkinson, because I do believe that TJ Hawkinson can still kind of get back into the rhythm of things. He is not cooked for the entire season. Dalton Schultz, he has the PCL injury, and now this is sad because this is something they say he can play through. But I do believe that them saying he can play through it is he's going to be out there blocking and not running many routes. So I'm very worried as a Dalton Schultz manager everywhere. Like, I have him just about everywhere. I'm pivoting right now. I'm trying to keep Schultz on my bench. But if I have to sacrifice Schultz to go get a different tight end, I'm doing it. Because I need tight end right now. I'm not taking the chance that he's going to be blocking and he's not going to be. He hasn't been involved enough with Cooper Rush and everything for me to want to say I need to hang on to him. If I have to make room, sacrifices need to be made, I'm willing to take that chance with Dalton Schultz. I do believe that you can drop him in exchange for a tight end that you can really, really rely on. Got 3 good ones for you on the waiver segment. So a little tease for the waiver segment. Irv Smith sneaks up a touchdown in this game. The targets were there, so I am watching him, but I am not wavering him. Moving on to the last section of the show. Not as long as the show as I thought, so that's pretty good. Let us get right into it. We are talking about the waiver section. Quarterback waivers for this week. Carson Wentz, it has to be Carson Wentz, man. If he's still out there, you gotta go get him. Mariota for this week, he gets to play against Seattle. Jared Goff has been okay, and he gets Minnesota. Flacco, take a look for him tomorrow because he gets to play against Cincy, who just got beat by Cooper Rush and Dallas. Moving on to wide receiver, we got Garrett Wilson on the breakout week. He is my #1 waiver addition across all positions, and even if you are good at wide receiver, I think you need to get Garrett Wilson on your team because he could be explosive for the year. We're watching Elijah Moore disappear. It's becoming Garrett Wilson's team. Jacoby Myers has been very, very consistent back-to-back weeks, and because of consistency and the rule of necessity, which you guys know I love so much, I do think that Jacoby Myers is a good waiver addition for somebody that you can play just about every single week. Moving on to Noah Brown, he has been pretty involved, and I do think that this is a 1 or 2 week rental due to when Michael Gallup gets back. But Noah Brown has been one of Cooper Rush's favorite, and because of that, he is somebody that I am looking at as a waiver addition, and I think that you can slide onto your team. The last one, Greg Dortch, he is another one who I do believe is a waiver rental, but Hollywood going up against Jalen Ramsey next week. You got Rondale Moore taking a seat for a little while. Zach Ertz, I believe, led the team in targets. So Greg Dortch, you can slot him in next week against the Rams, and maybe Hollywood gets blanketed, and they have to use Greg Dortch a little bit more than they want. Kyler Murray does have the chance to kind of be somebody who sustains against the Rams. It is the Rams he's playing against. He's going to be rushing around a lot. He can put up numbers against the Rams, so Greg Dortch, not afraid to play him next week. Running back, this is a thin running back week, so hopefully you have some names like Pollard and stuff that really kind of slipped through last week where nobody grabbed him, or maybe they dropped them after a down performance. So take a look for those guys, but even guys like that are 80% rostered, so it's really difficult. It really depends on your league structure and who gave up on who. But let's talk about Eno Benjamin and Darrell Williams, because this is probably the biggest running back talk this week. It was James Conner's injury looming. If somebody has a waiver that they're willing to spend on a running back, it's really looking like Eno Benjamin and Darrell Williams. Now, Darrell Williams did lead the snap count when When James Conner went off the field, Darrell Williams did lead the snap count. So I do believe that Eno Benjamin or Darrell Williams, one of them will be picked up a lot more. I do kind of lean the end of Eno Benjamin because we've seen him a lot more in the game. So I think that Eno Benjamin will be the benefactor. But as far as either one of these goes, I think it could be rocky and it could be a shaky start, especially against the Rams. So I'm really not trying to waiver either one of these, even though they are the big talk this week, and basically all the other platforms are saying these are the guys you go grab. I'm a little bit off of those guys, so I'd rather go with somebody like Burkhead, and I know it's gross, but he gets Minnesota, who just got embarrassed by Aaron Jones, and Davis Mills is going to target him. Damian Pierce we haven't really seen much of, so if I'm looking for somebody who can give me 12 to 15 points, we're going to go with Rex Burkhead. Spoiler alert, Rex Burkhead's on my lineup of the week for next week. Another one who I think that you can grab off waivers because he's somebody that you could slot in every single week as your emergency play, and that is Jamal Williams. He has the upside of a touchdown just about every week. The team loves him. I'm hoping that Jamal Williams eventually disappears. That way DeAndre Swift becomes the number one running back on the season across running back position. But Jamal Williams, he's going to stay consistent. He's going to have upside, so therefore you can kind of slot him in as somebody who, you can probably hope for 9 points, kind of count on 9 points, 9 points for, and then hope for that touchdown. J.D. McKissic, he was very involved this week. He gets Philadelphia next week, 7 targets this week for J.D. McKissic, and that team is, really covered in talent, so I really like J.D. McKissic on any time where he can get in. He's got a chance to catch a ball from Carson Wentz and do what he needs to with it, so like the targets there. Moving on to tight ends, this is probably my favorite time of the season because now we get to really grab into tight ends that have a really lot of appeal. And since it's such a thin position for somebody to really grab value with, if they're not willing to take the chance on wavering one of these tight ends, I will do it and then I will trade that to them because it is one of those players that is really, really hard to get. Call it dirty, you should have grabbed it first. I want tight end, so I have depth at tight end because it is a difficult position to have. Now, if I'm willing to take the chance on trading you one of those tight ends, which I desperately need to get into my lineup every single week, then I can get something in return for it. So I don't think it's a dirty move. I think it's a move where, because it is so scarce at the position, I want two on my team if I don't have an Andrews, a Kelsey, a Waller, something like that. So as the Dalton Schultz manager, these are the players that I'm really looking at, and I'm willing to waiver all 3 of them. Now, Gerald Everett is very, very close behind Garrett Wilson as my number 1 across all positions. I think that Gerald Everett is an absolute must-own player, and I say that even knowing that Keenan Allen is going to be back. Now, aside from Garrett Wilson, yes, I think Everett does have every week appeal. The targets are there, the looks are there, Justin Herbert connection with him is there. So very excited for Gerald Everett. I do believe that he is the guy to be an every week starter off of the waiver wire this year. So if you're really hurting at tight end, you're the Dallas Goedert manager, whatever it may be, I would go get Gerald Everett and I would make him my every week starter. Next up, we got Tyler Higbee. He would be my next one. Spoiler alert, Irv Smith is not on this. He's somebody that I'm looking at, but I will grab him as a free agent. I will not waiver him. I'm willing to waiver Tyler Higbee because he is going to be involved in this offense, probably as the number 3 receiving option. He's not going to have crazy touchdown volume. He's going to probably only have 1 or 2 here, but when you're seeing 7 to 8 targets that could probably rise to 10 in a couple games, at tight end position with Matt Stafford on that offense that's going to get better and better every single week. I'm very excited for Tyler Higbee's upside. And my last one isn't glamorous, but it is Tyler Conklin. Now, he's got good target totals and receptions the last 2 weeks. Not a flash name that we're talking about. He had the touchdown week 1, but Joe Flacco seems to be going to him, and he has been pretty consistent. And the upside here is that Zach Wilson in the offseason was said to have a great connection with Tyler Conklin, especially in the red zone. He really liked him as one of his primary options to throw to. Obviously, with the emergence of Garrett Wilson being on the field more, you're going to see him a lot more, but I think that does help when you have a player that, like him, can kind of back the defense up a little bit. So Zach Wilson, even when he comes back, I do believe that Tyler Conklin is going to have great appeal. That is our show, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, go ahead and follow me on TikTok. It'll be little shorter videos for waivers, number 1 players, tips throughout the week, and stuff like that. I will be back tomorrow talking about some more stuff with you. Obviously, it sounds like I'm coming down with a cold, so I really do hope I am here tomorrow. Been drinking plenty of water because my body is always dehydrated, so I'm very sure that I'm coming down with a cold. But fortunately, you can't get cold through camera. Only good fantasy advice. That's all you get here at Fantasy Daily. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Thank you. Take care. Have a good night. Good luck on the waivers. All that good stuff.